constantly hearing, well, of course, that one was easy. He was just a piece of cake. It wouldn't work on one that wanted to resist you at all. And they just scoff at me and put me down. Now's my chance. We have a wild one.
This is not going to be easy. A lot of people have been killed trying to break mustangs.
I think he's absolutely crazy and runs a risk of being killed. Really, honestly.
Chances of success, not very good. The risk are internal injuries, broken bones. You see a lot of cowboys without teeth. Some of it had to do with that.
He's going out with the wild ones.
That's
Wild's
right.
wild.
Yeah, they've broke wild horses before. Maybe not his method.
Not his method, that's my
but
point.
they've broken.
You gonna do it? You wanna go with him?
Well,
well now, see, you don't... I don't either.
My insurance company don't cover me. So
Yeah, that is.
I'm out there.
If you've ever been around a horse, you know the most dangerous part of the horse is his front feet, not his back feet. His back feet hurt you. The front feet kill you.
The front feet in this case belong to a wild mustang. A man called Monty Roberts plans to take such a dangerous and untamed horse and persuade it to be saddled and ridden simply by talking to it.
They are wild. They are wild to a degree that they would be very dangerous when you're up close, but they would never want to be up close. So getting up close to them is very difficult to do.
Mustangs are wild horses that escaped from the Spanish centuries ago to roam over the western states of America. Although small in build, they're fast, very dangerous, and can easily kill a man. Yet these are the horses that Monty hopes to talk into tameness.
Your obligation then is to break this barrier.
Monty Roberts is renowned throughout the horse world for his remarkable ability to persuade an unbroken horse to accept a saddle and rider in less than 30 minutes, a process that normally takes weeks. 2 years ago, QED showed how Monty does it. Perhaps because it is so amazing to watch and seems so easy, some think Monty must be cheating by using partially tamed horses. So to prove them wrong, he's decided to put himself on the line. His method will face the ultimate test as Monty tries this on a Mustang in the wild. However, many are convinced that this time he'll fail.
But there's a very happy horse.
It is going to happen. How do I know that? The horses told me. For 50 years they've been telling me. I wasn't in the horse business till I was 3. I was showing horses in competition before the age of reason. My father used me as basically a calling card to his riding school. If this 4-year-old, then 5, 6, and 7-year-old could just whip all the competition up to, say, 16 years of age, you ought to go to that school, you know.
All right, talent set to go. Prescott, here's where it all began. Help him.
Monty grew up in the Western riding tradition and as a young man started to compete in rodeos.
I won masses of championships in rodeo. I won the national championship in 1957. I wasn't a particularly talented rodeo competitor. I worked like heck at it and got good enough to win. I enjoyed it though. Showing my horses and rodeoing was my life for about 22 years or so.
In those days, part of that Western tradition was the way a horse was broken. The technique was often harsh and horrified Monty when he watched it as a boy.
If you tie a hind leg up on a horse and you put him on a pulley high on a post, and every time he jumps or fights to resist whatever you're doing with him, you pull his head right up high. It supposedly causes him to be so uncomfortable when he does that that he quits. And as a matter of fact, he does quit. I watched my father breaking horses in what I consider to be a most abusive way. And they would come gentle. And ultimately they would do their job. Again, my opinion is they didn't do their job as well as they would have done it if they did it because they wanted to, not because they're forced to.
It is wild horse racing time on our...
Wild horse races are the ultimate invasion of a wild creature. These animals are gathered in the wild, trapped, they're trucked to an event. If someone could just start to look at it from the eyes of the horse and realize the terror that must come over them, to be treated in that fashion is it's just dead wrong. I grew up watching this event. I competed in this event.
My, oh my, very bold, you have lined them up with horses today.
As soon as I got to know the wild horse, I hated every minute of it. It's wrong.
Monty first really got to know wild horses when he was 14. He had gone out to Nevada to trap them for a wild horse race. And as he stalked them, he learned something surprising about their behavior.
My first discovery was that the black stallion didn't lead the family group. I always thought the stallion in the movies, you know, when I was a child, he was in charge of everything. Well, stallions aren't in charge of much of anything. They're in charge of getting the mares pregnant, and they're in charge of protecting their harem from being taken away by other stallions. End of story. What I saw was that it's the mare. It's the female, generally an older female. She's the one who makes the rules. She's the one who says where we'll eat today, the direction we'll travel, where we'll drink, when we'll drink. She will babysit with multiples of youngsters and be a role model for those youngsters, telling them what was acceptable, what wasn't, and scolding them when they were wrong. And I discovered that the scolding process was to isolate. Now, what is this? Send that little guy out there and leave him out there on his own. And he knew, somehow he knew he's supposed to stay out there. Being isolated from the herd is a sentence of death. The predators will come along and see an isolated grazer. Within 48 to 72 hours, they will die. Their herd instincts are incredibly strong. They have power in numbers. And if several mares are kicking at a mountain lion, they can do him a lot of harm. And remember that a mountain lion with his teeth kicked in is a dead mountain lion. So he doesn't want to be hurt. He wants the easiest prey he can find. An isolated grazer is like smorgasbord. The dominant mare, when she sent the colt out there, she would be communicating with him that he's to stay out there. And I saw how she communicated. Eyes on eyes, square shoulders. It kept him out there for maybe 2 hours. And when she felt he'd paid enough of a price for whatever action he had done negative, she would walk in a circle and she'd start to make her motions round and sort of drop her head like this and look away. And he'd start to come back in. And he would slip back into the group. Well, it was a revelation to me. Then I'd go home and start fiddling about with it with my horses, and I was, wow, it's right, you know? Even my body, not built like the horse, would cause this reaction and response to the language.
Monty calls this horse language equus. He uses it when he tames a horse to take a saddle and a rider. It's the key to his success.
Boy.
This horse is used to wearing a head collar but has not been broken in. What Monty is going to do now is imitate the behavior of a dominant mare.
He's got a few little battle scars on him.
Monty's technique has been studied by animal behaviorist Dr. Robert Miller.
Monty wants this horse to see him as a surrogate herd leader. For example, in his round pen techniques, takes a line and frightens the horse by throwing it out. That's a frightening visual stimulus. The horse moves, and he keeps it moving. And he keeps the horse moving until The horse has gone its biological flight distance, roughly a quarter of a mile. Basically, it's just a little bit farther than a lion is capable of charging.
Eyes on eyes, all my motions square.
It runs that distance and then turns around to see what it was that frightened it. You run first, then analyze what it was. This is typical equine behavior. And then the horse will start to signal with body language, lowering the head, licking the lips, and chewing. It starts to signal, I'm in big trouble. I've run the necessary distance. That thing is still chasing me. I'm afraid I'm going to die. I need help. I need a leader. And the only game in town is the man in the center of the pen.
If he drops his head down near the soil, it means that if we could have a meeting, I'd let you be the chairman of the meeting. If he licks and chews, it means I'm a herbivore. There's the head down. So that means I'll let you be the chairman of the meeting.
When the horse signals a sufficient level of submissiveness, Monty suddenly becomes passive and non-threatening.
Attempt to draw him. I'm going to tell you when the licking and chewing.
He turns away, lowers his gaze. He immediately becomes passive.
To cause him to understand that I've moved from aggressive to passive. Good licking and chewing.
This horse then comes to him and in effect asks, would you help me? Are you my leader? I need help. And he then, without threatening the horse, very quietly strokes the horse.
Round movements instead of square movements. Reward him now for coming to me.
And the horse, you'll see, gratefully moves its head, licks its lips, and says, well, thank you. I'm so glad. Then he has what he calls join-up.
In an effort to accomplish follow-up. Follow-up. Perfect. Good licking and chewing.
Then, as he moves around, the horse does the horse thing. He follows the leader. And the more he follows him, the more comfortable he is. Horses seek comfort.
I want to go down here where the dogs...
Monty's radically different methods are very impressive. However, years ago, when Monty as a boy first told his father of his ideas, he got a very strange reaction.
My father was extremely upset. I mean, he didn't want me trying anything except what he told me to try. And so what he saw was a horse that came to me, stood with me, and accepted its first saddle with nothing on its head. It just stayed there because it wanted to, and he couldn't handle it. I mean, if that was right, and it would work, it destroyed his life. All the things that he had done before that were wrong, and he couldn't handle it. And when I looked up at him, he had his mouth open, and his first words were, "What the hell am I raising?" And I didn't expect that. I was such an idealistic child that I thought I was doing a good thing. And he took a piece of chain and beat me till I was in the hospital. Oh, sure, I resented him for it. If someone is grossly unfair to you and physically abusive to you, you ought to resent it. I don't hate my father. I don't hate any of the... If it wasn't for my father's really tough handling of horses, I probably never would have been dedicated enough to do what I'm doing. So in a way, he did me a great favor by swinging the pendulum so far toward pain and restraint that he caused me to have to find a better way.
Now, at the age of 62, Monty still has his critics. So on Easter Sunday, he set off to prove that his gentle way would work with even the wildest of horses, the Mustang. This time, however, he wasn't going to do it in the confines of a round pen, but in the wide open spaces of the high desert in California. What's about to happen has never been seen before, and it is so demanding that whether he succeeds or fails, Monty has said that he will never attempt it again.
Keep the herd to the west. Don't let them come back east on us, because if they come back east, they're going to gather up with that Mustang again. They're going to tease him back to them.
The Mustang was from Nevada, It had been kept with a herd of semi-wild rodeo horses for several weeks and handled as little as possible. The first job was to separate him from the other horses so that Monty could start to talk to him. With the Mustang free to run over miles of open territory, taming this horse was going to take a lot more than 30 minutes. Days, in fact. If he could do it at all, that is.
This bona fide, registered, freeze-branded, wild Mustang is going to come back to me and say, I want to be with you. You're okay. And I'll take this saddle, I'll take this bridle, and I'll take this rider. That's all I've ever said I could do, and I'll do it.
Late Easter Sunday afternoon, and out in the high desert, the Mustang was still not convinced it was good to talk.
The first nearly 100 miles was fast, furious, wild, difficult, and the horse was very restless and trying to get lost, you know, and in the dark, it's easy to lose one.
For Monty's technique to work, he had to stay awake and ride through the night, using whatever moonlight there was to follow the Mustang. By daybreak the next morning, the temperature had dropped dramatically, and rain clouds loomed over the wide valleys of the high desert. Monty was very tired, cold, and aching after a day and a night of non-stop riding, but he had managed to stay close to the Mustang all through the night.
About 4:15 in the morning, and it seemed to me that this horse could sense the daylight coming, that he would re-explore his chances to get away, and he took me on a tour that must have been from, I don't know, 7 to 12 miles, exploring the wilderness, just exploring those open spaces, and I felt like this is never going to end.
And then about an hour after dawn, long before Monty had expected it to, the Mustang stopped running and began to stay close to him. Animal behaviorist Bob Miller particularly wanted to be here to watch this remarkable event.
Well, it's remarkable in that we're doing this in the open with a wild horse. We've got thousands and thousands of acres of open country here. But this animal is not fleeing. It's responding to the round pen technique, not in a round pen, not in a confined area, but out in the open. It's verification that all of Monty's concepts are perfectly valid. That horses do respond to the body language he is using. They respond to movement by accepting the leadership of whoever is moving it.
By now, the Mustang was talking to Monty, but it wasn't sweet talk.
It can be very dangerous. Very typical Mustang, small in stature. Don't let that fool you. They are tough, they're wiry. A Mustang can kill you if you don't handle them properly.
Oh, boy. They are so strong. It's incredible. Those jaws can crush a man's leg, let alone arm, in an instant. And that hind leg, when it kicks, it is frankly lethal. Amateurs do not belong doing this at all. What an amateur doesn't know is the position to be in when the onslaught comes. When he whirls to kick, you've got to try to get in front of the hind leg, so it's difficult for him to really get... got pretty angry there. And it's not to say that I can't be injured either, but that little move right there, is pretty angry. I'll just put my arm up quickly like that and startle him off of me, and then we'll have to go back to work to put him back in a better mood. You have to go to work now. Not much work, but I've reinforced this contract with him that when he stops or makes any attempt to be with me, that I'll take the pressure off of him like that. I'll take the pressure off of him so I can get him to see the value of being with me, and you'll see that he's moving now in such a way so as to keep his head toward me. And that's really a big improvement, and turn like this in such a way to show the horse that we're rewarding him. And oh yeah.
Now see those mouth movements. See the opening and shutting of the mouth? Unfortunately, this is called snapping, which is really a bad term because it implies aggressiveness, and it actually means just the opposite. What it's saying is, you are my leader, please don't hurt me. This is baby talk. This horse is actually assuming infantile behavior to convince the other horse that it is helpless, vulnerable, non-threatening, and completely submissive. Baby foals do this all the time.
This is so thrilling. I can't tell you how exhilarating it is when you spend 24 hours with what seems to be sheer drudgery going nowhere, and then all of a sudden the communication system kicks in and he speaks equus to you loud and clear. It is so wonderful. There you are. There you are.
Earlier, he was prepared to defend himself, but you see, there's no sign of aggressiveness now at all. It's learned that this horse, although it controls his movements, has never hurt him. So he's reassured now. He's lost a lot of the anxiety.
By early afternoon, the rain clouds were clearing away. Monty had asked Caleb, a young helper who brought him fresh horses, to ride on the other side of the Mustang.
Well, there's a lot going on here. First of all, this horse is responding very differently than previously because Monty has changed horses. And this horse is not showing the submissive signs towards this horse, and this makes it much more difficult. And so what they're doing is when the horse tries to move away from them, they make him uncomfortable by quietly pursuing him. And if he stands still, they reward him by simply becoming passive.
Easy now. Easy, good boy.
He's moving in close enough where he can get the rope around his neck.
Easy. You be nice now.
This is a very critical point because that horse could blow up if he's frightened. There goes the knot. He's tying a bowline around his neck, and if he'll just hold still a few more seconds, he'll have it. There.
They must at least respect their own language. And when you can speak it well enough, ultimately they have to respond to it. It's just in their genes. They have to do it.
They're going to try to get that halter on him, moving very slowly so as not to precipitate a flight reaction. This is quite dangerous, not because the horse is aggressive, it's just a very frightened animal. And in its fear of being unable to flee, it could strike or kick and injure either the riders or the other horses, or itself.
You're a tough little nut, you know that? Right down to the wire. That's all right.
The Mustang was listening to Monty, but it was still wild and wary. By now it was late afternoon on Easter Monday and enough for one day. The tricky job of putting on a saddle could wait until the next morning.
This is nice. Hey, Caleb. Good to see you.
You too.
Everything all right?
Good. It's a great camp you got set up here.
Thank you.
What do you think?
I don't know.
You think I can do it or not?
Yeah, I hope you can.
Yeah.
Some people think that Monty's techniques, based on horse language, are not new. They believe that even the ancient Greeks knew about them, but Monty strongly disagrees.
I've heard the names and I've read the accounts and I've seen the evidence of what others have done, and I've studied hard. No information has come to me to verify that anybody else before me has ever learned this communication system.
Next morning, Monty and Caleb led the Mustang down into a nearby canyon sheltered from the wind. It was the start of a very tense day. They were going to try to saddle the horse for the first time.
The Mustang is now bonded to the man-horse combination. He recognizes them as a unit. And now what has to happen is a transition must be made so that he accepts the man on the ground as his leader. And that's what Monty's going to do next now. He's going to work the horse from the ground and establish a new relationship.
Equus is a language of the body position, motion, speed of motion, and direction of motion. That's the language Equus. There's going to be some areas on a Mustang that are just way too sensitive to allow you in on the first day. That's pretty touchy there. So we won't aggravate him too long there. We'll come back and let him consider this up in here a reward now. Might get some licking and chewing here if we get him in a comfort zone. There it is. See it? That's when he's saying, everything's okay. You're back there where I want you. And then we'll come back here on this hip. Oh, that's pretty touchy. That's pretty touchy. He backed out of it, so I'll pull him. When he's come up of his own accord, then I'll reward him. And it's just amazing how quickly they come along. But you've got to reward early for the slightest improvements.
Now the time has come to put a surcingle on the horse.
Caleb, see all the snorting and carrying on? He's just looking at this thing on me and saying, oh, you're not the same guy now. Something different here. So I'll just sneak in here and try to get him to believe that I am the same guy. Ah, he says, I think you got a surprise for me.
If you rush it too much, or if you can't read the horse's reactions, you could get a very violent reaction on the part of the horse.
Each time he does that, he goes through a learning process. But now I can go back to the spot where I was when he spooked. And it's a very good idea, instead of putting your hand down there and having your head bent over and everything, to use this hook to get that girth with, particularly on these Mustangs, because they can kick a fly off the wall at 15 feet. All right, that's okay. And he'll start to get accustomed to that girth hanging down there, and he'll learn that it's not a snake or some terrible instrument of torture.
Prey animals, like the horse, that defend themselves by running away, they do not like to be enclosed. They like open space. They feel safest in an open area. So the girth in the saddle, as that girth is tightened, is very frightening to the horse.
We don't take any unnecessary chances.
There was a little flight reaction.
Oh, good boy.
Frightened him. Look at that horse's legs, how he's poised to just jump. He's ready to spring into flight. Why isn't he doing it? Because he's already bonded and dependent upon this man as his leader.
Up to me again, wearing this.
Movement creates submissiveness, and so by moving the horse, he's hoping to get a change of attitude.
Oh, I'm losing ground, Caleb.
The alarm caused by the compression of the surcingle and girth is now inhibiting his responses to being led. But in just a few moments, he's going to start relaxing as he desensitizes to that pressure. And he'll be responding as he was. There he goes now.
Nice.
He'll respond just like he did earlier.
That's nice.
Why? Because they so quickly desensitize.
Mission accomplished.
And he's put the surcingle aside. He's got an exercise saddle.
Now he's got different sight to see here.
This horse is now desensitized to Monty, his hat, his clothing, and the surcingle. But he sees this saddle. It's a frightening thing to him. He knows it's different. He knows he hasn't seen it before. It's a whole new thing.
And he's pretty sure that this is a predator I've got here. He's pretty sure that there's a lot of trouble connected with it somewhere. Oh, that's silly now. You're repeating yourself. Oh, good boy. Oh, good boy. Oh, good boy. That's a nice boy.
Monty's going to use the hook now to reach the girth and bring it under his belly.
But you don't have to be really tight. Then come...
There it is. Alarm reaction. He's intentionally moving him around so he'll become desensitized to the feel of that saddle.
I won't look him in the eye, and I'll just step up, put my hand out, and he'll bring his face right.
Little reinforcement.
So we take these irons right down and let him be down there on his side like that. They see something on their side, and they'll try to kick it. Found something new, didn't you? Huh? Oh, boy. That's a pretty spooky thing there. Yeah. He's feeling this for the first time in his life, where when something touched him, it wasn't actually touching him. That's a strange feeling. There. Saddles are saddles, but this kind of a saddle is pretty wild. Stock saddle.
See, if he'd put this big stock saddle on initially without desensitizing him with the surcingle and the little saddle, he would have had a fit.
He could jump, Caleb, so you want to be sure you're out of the way. When one starts crouching back that way, he could jump and strike out with his front feet and sure enough hurt you. So you get yourself in a position...
I don't know if the casual observer or the inexperienced person can appreciate it, but all it would take is a wrong move on Monty's part, and this horse would explode.
That rope along there.
It's only his skill and experience that's keeping that from happening, and the fact that he's so attuned to the horse's reactions.
I'm in love with you.
This little horse is now ignoring the saddle. He's kind of oblivious to it. He's concentrating on Monty, and has kind of forgotten that he's got that saddle on his back.
Now it was time for the final challenge, getting a rider into the saddle. In case of trouble, he had to be light and very agile. Wrangler Scott Silvera was well aware of the risks involved.
You go ahead. You go ahead. Make your move. Get your halter, do whatever you want. Ooh, now. Ooh, now. Ooh, now. Ooh, now. Ooh. Easy now.
He's used to the people, he's used to the saddle, but he's not used to the weight of a rider on his back.
Do it, son. Do it, son. Be a nice boy. Be a nice boy. Easy now. Easy now. Then you make your move. You go for it. Hey, there you are. All right.
Monty had done it. In less than 3 days, he'd achieved what many thought was impossible.
That's a tense time, isn't it? It's wonderful. Are you kidding me? It's wonderful. You know you can do it, but it isn't until it happens, you know? Just walking right on around, right and left. That's good. That's good. It's just the most wonderful feeling you could ever have. I'm really happy.
Isn't it remarkable that this was a frightened wild animal? Look at it now.
Wonderful.
Look how much has been accomplished. And it's been done without injuring the animal, without brutality. It's been done by gentle psychological means.
Monty's dream had come true. He'd proved that by talking to it in its own language, even the wildest of horses will learn to respond.
It's been said by good horsemen that if learning is 1 to 10, the most important part of learning is 0 to 1. It's the same with children, I believe. If children can hear positive things about tiny little improvements, they respond very favorably.
At his farm in California, Monty's theories about horses have been applied to raising children. He and his wife, Pat, have 3 children of their own and dozens of foster children.
We had 47 foster children. Almost all of them came to us at 11, 12, and 13 years of age, which is long after life's patterns have already been deeply set in.
Steve Arlano is now a successful businessman living in California. But as a young teenager in San Francisco, he was becoming rather wild.
Steve Arlano came to me at about 15 years of age. He was on a course to have some real problems in his life, and I'd like to think that the time that he spent with me put him on a positive course. I guess he would be the final judge as to whether that was the case or not.
We did some pretty silly things. I was in fights on a regular basis, and we lived near the University of San Francisco, and we broke into buildings to play pinball. One particular time, the San Francisco police came in and were chasing us, and my father stepped out of the apartment and heard the officer say, "Stop or I'll shoot."
Monty believes that the way he dealt with these problems was similar to the techniques he uses with his horses.
I wasn't until a few years ago he had told me that, well, I use that technique on you. At the time, I didn't know what technique he was talking about.
The psychology isn't any different in its basic principles. You don't put a child in a round pen and send him away by flicking a line at him. But in human terms, you do the same thing, putting them to work when they're negative and giving them great positive consequences when they're positive. Any little thing, find that thing that he can do positive and reward him for it. It may seem very unimportant to you, but it may be the most important thing in that child's life, because it may be the first step in the right direction.
If he pushed me away, I certainly didn't think anything poorly of it. And when he pulled me back in, I just enjoyed that.
I think he brought us in because he wanted to help kids, and he didn't do it yelling, screaming, or any way. Just let me know what taught me wrong from right.
Bill Cherry came to me a very aggressive sort of kid. First thing he did was come up to me and say, "Hey, Turkey, what do you want?" I said, "What I want is that from this day forward, you will call me Mr. Roberts, and you will not be disrespectful at all. That's what I want." "Well, you're not going to get that, you know." "Yeah, I probably am going to get that. But, Billy, I'm going to work to get you to want to give me that. rather than to tell you, you have to give me that. So you call me whatever you want.
I was cocky. I was very outgoing.
And I went to work on him on this very principle that we've been discussing. He got negative consequences for negative actions. And he spent some time digging ditches and scrubbing toilets to the point where he'd stand up in your face and say he's not going to do it, you know. And then you'd list the further negatives that would get him.
Bill Cherry was training to be a jockey, and one of his jobs was to exercise horses every day.
Sometimes I didn't feel like riding all the horses. And I remember one day, I think I had about 10 mounts. And when we ride the horses, we used to mark it off on a sheet. Well, I think I only rode about 8, but still marked off 10. And went home, took a shower, and Monty approached me and says, "How was the rides today?" I said, "Good." He goes, "Did you ride all your horses?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Why are you lying to me?" I got caught. He says, "I want you here after school. I want you to ride the horses." So that taught me never to do that again, to cheat.
He spent some really tough time paying the price for negative consequences. And it was 5 days until he walked up to me, stuck his hand out and said, "Mr. Roberts, Anyway, he said, "Mr. Roberts." And from that point forward, I was either Dad, Pops, or Mr. Roberts. Got a wonderful family now. Happened to Billy Cherry in the end is the most incredible, positive story you can tell.
Today, Monty still trains race horses on his farm, but since 1989, his life has changed immensely. It was then that the Queen invited him to Windsor Castle to demonstrate his techniques. As a result, Monty's become known internationally, especially in the world of horse racing. One of Monty's ideas can help at the start of races. Most horses enter the starting stalls easily, but some resist intensely. Monty believes there's a good reason for this. It's related to the way they've evolved to defend themselves from predators.
Horses are into pressure animals, no question about it. Unlike human beings, if we touch a hot stove, we'll pull away from it. But when the horse feels pressure, they will bring their head or their body toward it like that. Now, in case you thought that was an accident, I'll do it one more time for you. Horses are into pressure animals. If I do it on this side, you'll see that she'll bring her head this way and come into the pressure. The reason they're into pressure, in my opinion, is that nature has dictated that when they're attacked in their vulnerable areas, they shouldn't just rip away and tear the skin. They should go into their attacker, and then fight him off. Inside the starting stall itself, what you can't see, there's a ledge that goes along for the jockey to put his feet on and to protect his feet from the horse's sides. And it's badly designed. The ledge in the starting stall is confronted by the flank of the horse. They come into it like this. You see? Into it. You see? So many people in the horse industry will think that the solution to this is to force the horse, and that's not the answer at all. It's already frightened.
Monty thinks a blanket is a better solution. It's left behind in the stalls as the race starts.
The blanket goes just behind the saddle and comes down here and protects this whole rear flank area with heavy padding and leather across there so that they don't actually feel the rail coming through. It dulls off this feeling that they're being attacked as if they were being gnawed on by a predator. You can take horses that are absolutely without solution and put that on, and in a matter of hours, they're perfectly tranquil.
Well, here we are at the flag is up.
Monty's fame is not limited to the horse racing world. It's even extended to the corporate world, where his ideas have been useful in management training.
Thank you for having us. Welcome. Okay, hi there. Come on in.
One feature of the demonstrations that Monty gives is that occasionally some women in the audience faint.
This light line to throw it out so that if it should hit him, it can't cause him any pain, like that. It's as light.
It's ranging now in demonstration form about one fainting for each 12 demonstrations.
That's just the name that I started calling him.
I had 5 ladies faint in the one demonstration. And I predicted in my own mind before the demonstration that this one could get a fainting because it was an abused horse. I showed them how she feared being struck, showed them how she feared being kicked, and then I put her through my procedure, and she came around beautifully, and she just was so appreciative of someone treating her fairly that when she came up and joined up with me, I heard kaboom over here, and I saw some people looking down, and the next thing I know, there were people looking down over here and then over there. I've spoken, I suppose, with 90% of them, and virtually every single one has been abused. Most of them are not traumatized by what they saw. It's a moving experience.
No teachers?
They throw their arms around me, and they tell me, you can help human beings with this, don't quit, and they tell me that they adore what I'm doing, and you know, things like that. But that's not important because it isn't me. It is not me.
I didn't create anything at all. I only discovered what nature already had in place.
Thank you very much. You were a great audience.
Look there, Gus. Yeah. Take a look at that.
Hello, little shy boy. You're not so shy now, are you? Huh? You're not so shy now. You're doing good.
I knew it was going to happen 24 hours into it, but you never know for sure.
Wow.
Okay.
Well done. They said it couldn't be done, but you did it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now that I've seen it, made a believer out of me. You knew it all along. I should have listened to you a little closer.
Well,
I probably will from now on.
they can put a man in the moon, he can break a Mustang.
I guess so, if that's what you say.
I'm happy.
You ready for some dinner?
I'm ready
I'll
for some
bet you are.
barbecue. Every demonstration that I do will be done with a new knowledge within myself that those skeptics out there have to know now. They're going to see it, and they're not going to say to me, well, of course, you know, you say about these Mustangs and that they're so wild and everything, but come on, you know, I mean, I saw this one and it was a fluke. This was, anybody could have done this. I'm just going to smile now because the evidence is there. You go for it.
That's a tense time, isn't it?